Most people think that the Pokemon hobby can be incredibly expensive to get into, especially if you want to get into card collecting with your kids. Nowadays, cards can sell for hundreds of dollars, which is why today I decided to put that to the test and spend $100 on damaged Pokemon cards. Some of them are cheap, some are expensive, but all of them are damaged. One of my favorite Pokemon over the last few generations is Zeraora. I feel like during the Sword and Shield era, Zeraora just got so many awesome and cool cards. And so when I hit up my local card shop, I knew I had to empty their Zeraora stock by buying V-Stars, V-Maxes, and V-Cards for Zeraora. I ended up getting 5 Zeraora cards that to these sellers were classed as damaged, and I have had a deep look at each and every one of these cards, and I have to say, I can't see much damage. Maybe I just got lucky, or maybe the cards were nothing to write home about in the first place. In total, these 5 cards cost me $10, and given that Zeraora only has 23 cards, this was a pretty good chunk of a Zeraora Master Collection. But you're probably here for the expensive cards, aren't you? The cards that really make you wonder how much could it be if it was near mint. So let's talk about this Entei promotional card. This is the promo number 34 Entei from the Neo era of Pokemon cards. This card cost me $7 in a damaged form. The card was first found as part of a promotional campaign with the release of Spell of the Unknown Entei, or the third Pokemon movie. This ran from April 6, 2001 until stocks ran out. As said, in a damaged form, the card store sold me this card for $7, and it is certainly damaged. And to be honest, I overpaid for this card. You can realistically get this card for around $4 on some online marketplaces in a damaged condition, but then you miss out on the guarantee that the card will ever even reach you. If you're into collecting cards as well, the dopamine hit you get from physically buying a card in person is considerably better than if you were to purchase it online. It adds to the feeling of catching them all. But let's move on to the next genre of cards that I decided to pick up, the stamped cards. For years, pretty much since the Pokemon TCG first began, Pokemon has been releasing certain cards at pre-release events that contain a little stamp in the bottom corner of the artwork. Some of these have become really expensive, while some are little hidden gems, such as this EX Legend Maker stamped Machop. They sold me this card as damaged for $5. However, I would argue it's closer to moderately played, which could make the card worth $9. None of these cards are bank breakers. However, it does show that even if you purchase a card that someone deems damaged, someone else might class it as heavily or moderately played. And if you get super lucky, someone may even think of it as lightly played. We also got an EX Dragon Frontiers stamped Electabuzz for $7, where in a near mint the card can go for closer to $15. Meaning, if you have no interest in the reselling of cards and solely care about the collection aspect, you can get a more expensive card for cheaper, and then get to have it in your collection. Which brings us into the more wishy-washy points, the nostalgia cards. I have spoken about various types of cards on the channel in the past, with arguably the type of card I speak about most being the Team Plasma cards. These are cards that were stamped with the Team Plasma logo found within the Plasma Storm, Freeze, and Blast expansions. The cards are super cool and really can be quite expensive. I picked up 5 of these cards: a Plasma Palkia EX, a Plasma Kyurem, a Plasma Cofagrigus, a Plasma Articuno EX, and then the World Championship deck Plasma Deoxys. I spent maybe $20 on these cards, but to me it didn't matter. These were the cards that meant something to me as a kid. Black and White was the generation I really remember putting a lot of time into, with the packs, the cards, the games, and the TV show. I feel like from a nostalgia standpoint, these cards really hit differently with me, and even in a damaged form, they still hit me with that feeling of being a kid again. The Articuno EX in particular is borderline destroyed. The back is peeling off and the edges are completely whitened. However, it saved me spending $20 or more on a near mint version. I spent $1 on this card, which was a great deal just to own in my collection. As for the Deoxys EX World Championship deck card, if I wanted to get the regular holo version of this card that wasn't the World Championship version, it would cost me $40. However, the card store I went to were generous enough to just give me this card, as they rarely ever sell them. And if nostalgia is not something you personally feel towards Pokemon cards, how about some weird or strange cards that have an interesting story behind them, or some small detail that makes them unique, such as the Neo Genesis Moo Moo Milk card, which I spent $1 on. Now granted, I once again definitely overpaid for this card, because you could probably get it for like 20 cents. But the story behind it to me is so interesting. The design was exclusive to the West after the Japanese design was censored for being a bit weird, and the feeling I got when I saw this card made me think of that small detail. The same thing goes for my 2 Sabrina's Gaze graded cards, with both of them being different for the same censorship reason. And if card design changes between localizations is not your thing, how about a card that is one of very few in existence? Volcanion EX, which is both a fire type and a water type. There are not many cards out there that have had this design choice before, and as such have largely been forgotten about. Finding a card like this that is unique, fun, and weird is really fun to do. Or how about cards from other countries? I love collecting Pokemon cards found all around the world. When I first moved to America from the UK, the first thing I did was look up what cards I should bring from the UK that I would not be able to find in America. But it works for other countries too, such as these 3 simplified Chinese cards from the Gem collections. We have the Stamped Cubone, the Pokeball Gengar, and then finally the Master Ball Espeon. In English, a Master Ball Espeon could go for anything up to $30. However, this Chinese version cost me only $2. Now there are of course some people out there who primarily focus on the value value of cards. How much can I make off these cards? That's important too. Some people buy damaged cards and try and decipher whether they can be classed as played instead. This is a bit of a tough category to figure out though. When I made my previous damaged cards video, the whole premise was how much profit can I make off these cards. And since making that video, I have really begun to appreciate the quality of damaged cards and the story behind them. I still show these cards to people because of how weird, old, and unique they actually are. There has been a running joke in videos recently about my friend Dino and his damaged Milotic card from Supreme Victors. I love making jabs that the card has become really valuable, and if he had taken better care of it, that it would be worth more today. However, the reality of the situation is that those cards have more history behind them. Someone spent time turning this card into a deck, and maybe even won some matches with that deck or that card at tournaments or clubs in school, such as this damaged Melmetal GX that someone has evidently played with at some point or used at some point. Someone has had fun with this card, whether it was showing it around or playing in a deck with it. And in a time where scalpers and prices dominate the TCG, it is important to remember that some people just like playing with the cards, and that is okay too. I just want to say a big thank you to Lost Legacy Collectibles down in Raleigh, North Carolina, who let me take some pictures of these next few cards that they had in store. Sometimes a damaged card could be an expensive card. For example, this Charizard full art could be found with an X and Y Flashfire, and even the damaged version sells for around $60, with a near mint version of this card going for $400. Meaning you can still get a beautiful looking card for your collection, even when the edges can have some wear and tear. Unless you have an awful quality card, you can still at least appreciate the artwork or the design of said card. Or how about the Umbreon EX from Fates Collide? Almost every special Umbreon card could go for hundreds of dollars, and even the regular EX versions can sell for closer to $50, such as the Umbreon EX, which goes for about $45. In a damaged condition though, the card goes for $8. If you want a nice Umbreon card that is not going to crush your bank account, then buying damaged is the way to go. This video is considerably shorter than videos I have made on the channel, because I think the message is more important. Damaged cards are an easy way to get a kid into the hobby if they don't care about the dollar signs attached to cards. At a time where the latest SIRs or art rares can go for hundreds of dollars, looking back on older generations and pulling cards from those that could be damaged, played, or even maybe lightly played is a way better way of collecting. Since making my first video on damaged cards, I have looked for damaged cards, so that I can add cards to my collection with cool artworks like the Moo Moo Milk, or with interesting designs such as Volcanion EX, or even interesting stories and histories such as the Entei promo from the third movie. It's easy to get bogged down by how much a card is worth, but never forget that every card has some kind of value to someone. Thank you guys for watching, make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the video.